It's time now for Health Fitness Broadcast with Sherri, a show covering the hottest fitness topics and latest health issues. And now, here's your host, Sherri Horner.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Today is another exciting interview, and our guest today is Karsten Jensen. He is a strength and conditioning coach, born and raised in Denmark, and now living with his wife, Lucinda, in Canada. Karsten, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Sherri. Thank you for having me.
Now, you have so much great information, and again, that's what we're about, is spreading the news and all the information about health and fitness to everyone. You have a whole lot of things going on, and you have a whole lot of things to offer, not just for the basic fitness enthusiasts, but especially for fitness professionals. Some great training materials. You have a great history, and I want to share your story, too, as we go through this time together. But your material that you have created, there's several different things that you're doing. I want to ask you a lot about the new book, The Flexible Periodization Method, later. But first, I want to ask if you'll share a couple things with us about, there's some ebooks that you have that are good for the basic fitness enthusiasts to help motivate them. What are the names of those? Is the one called Best Butt on the Beach? Is that what that one is? Or
Yes, we have. I actually have, I would say, 4 of the books that I have written are for the basic fitness enthusiast. Best Butt on the Beach is about how you can train on the beach. There's a lot of, I think, interesting information there. One is about the fundamental features of training on the beach. For example, that you can use the instability of the sand to train your stabilizer muscles, or you can use the resistance of the water if you go into the water to get a really cool workout. I actually also have two other books for the fitness enthusiast who doesn't even want to go to the gym. We have one called The 8-Minute Solution for Radiant Health and Strength, which is a home program that takes 8 minutes that you can do, at the comfort of your living room. We have a shorter book called Have Fun Training on the Run for the one who doesn't even want to schedule time to train, but it's just about how you can move a little more and expend a little more calories in your daily environment. One of the tips that's in there, for example, is to stand on one leg as you take your socks on. So it's just to make the regular environment a little more challenging.
That sounds good. So, wow, lots of great stuff on your website. I just want to give that out real quick. Yes2strength.com. Is that correct? And before we go further to talk about the book that is so important right now and so popular, I want to talk about your childhood. Now, you have a very, very interesting story, and of course, everybody has a story, and that's what I like to do is bring out the stories, because something inspired you a long time ago to have things evolve to where you're at now as a strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah.
Now, not just that, you're just such a great educator for providing so much material for trainers to keep them educated and motivated to train others. But so you were a little boy and you were interested in tennis, right? So I was reading a little bit about and then hearing your story from you. So let me ask you this. When you were hitting that tennis ball against the wall for 3 hours, you could do that for like 3 hours straight?
Yeah, sometimes I would miss, and I was hitting particularly I was hitting on a wall, and the ball would come back to you. And we did that before in Denmark. You play mostly on clay courts, so you can actually play outside from the beginning of March maybe, but the clay courts are not ready until May because they'll be too soft. So in that interim, I was playing on a wall and just hit the ball back and forth, and sometimes I would not. I would miss the wall, and I would have to go behind the wall and pick up the ball. But we would play for a total of 3 hours straight. And I distinctly remember that I got the feeling that I wanted to be like Bjorn Borg was the big player of the time, and I wanted to be a professional. I had the desire to be really, really good at what I did. And and I played up throughout my teens until I was 19. But I ended up becoming like a reasonably good player. I was nationally ranked as a junior, but I never excelled to the degrees that I had desires to excel within tennis.
Yeah. But you had that passion that you had. Now, what age were you when you just loved to hit that ball against the wall?
I was 7.
Yeah. See, that was young, and that's where it all started as far as your sports career.
Yeah.
And but you did play a lot of tournaments in high school and after high school?
Yeah, it's not called high school in Denmark. It's called something else. It's difficult to compare.
Oh, okay.
It's like the elementary school in Denmark goes from you're about 7 until you're about 16.
Okay.
And then you go into like a secondary level, which is from you're about 16 until you're 19. And from there you can go on to university. Okay. I played tournaments from I was about 11 until I was about 19.
Okay, all right. So now, even though you had your idols, John McEnroe was one.
Yeah.
Jimmy Connors, those were your idols, and so they. Now, let me ask you: did you have like their posters on your wall, or did you just know I would like to be like them?
Oh, I had lots of posters on my wall. It was essentially you wouldn't have needed the tapestry. I could have used the posters all alone. But there were a lot. I had Bjorn Borg. I actually did not have McEnroe. I had some of the great boxers of that time too. I had Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. I remember. Mm-hmm. I also had soccer players. I'm probably even more of a fan of Muhammad Ali than I was of Bjorn Borg.
I am
particularly
too.
As I grow older.
Mm-hmm.
I realize how great an athlete he was, and how, in my opinion, also great a person he was, and is.
Mm-hmm. I am a big fan of Muhammad Ali. Actually, we were born and raised in the same city.
Wow.
And I recently visited the Muhammad Ali Center there too. So a lot of great things. So you had multiple different stars to look up to, and I think that's what starts when we're young, and especially the athletes like yourself. When we're young and we see someone, and that's it. Something clicks.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm. We have idols, mentors, role models,
and that's what. And then now you are to so many people. So Karsten, you also had someone else that you looked up to in the tennis arena. This person, he went on to become the best Danish tennis player of the century, and you went on to become one of the best strength and conditioning coaches. Now, I know that you don't want to toot your own horn, but yes, you do have a great reputation, and you mentioned that there's no competition there as far as training coaches, but you've established so much as far as your reputation, and you had multiple other interests in your younger years, in your teenage years. You were involved in track and field, and a lot of other things, which I'm sure contributed to your love of strength and conditioning. You were involved in, of course, tennis and badminton, soccer, basketball. So did all that contribute to your love of wanting to?
I think that what me having participated in many sports, the way that has helped me as a strength and conditioning coach is that I have had a personal experience of the movements of those sports. So that has helped me a little bit. The main reason that I have been able to strength coach athletes successfully in so many sports is actually me learning biomechanics and how to do a proper needs analysis during my years in university. So those two things combined have helped that way.
So you have so many things. I just want to mention, we did mention before the e-books that you have, and I do want to talk about the book, The Flexible Periodization Method, in just a little bit, but I want to mention the fact that you're a contributing writer for multiple fitness publications. So you've done that over the years. What are some of the publications that you've written for?
I write for a Scandinavian magazine called eForm, which translated into English means In Shape. and they reach 500,000 Scandinavian women on a monthly basis. So
Great.
that's a pretty good feeling to know that I'm sharing with that many people. That's a really good feeling. I also is a contributor on PT on the Net on a monthly basis, which is a great website with educational material for personal trainers. I think those are the main ones that pops into mind. I have articles on a handful of other websites as well, but those are some of the main ones.
And your seminars that you offer, I just want to mention a few titles, and then you can tell us which ones are your favorite. I'm sure they're all your favorite, but what is your top favorite of all the seminar topics? You have the kettlebell training, core training, the art and science personal training, martial arts assessment, treatment and training, strength training and volleyball, and how to create a periodization plan. There's multiple other ones, but what is your favorite topic to speak on?
Yeah, my two favorite topics currently is the period, how to create a periodization plan, and also creating combination exercises. Those are the ones that we do the most. Outside of that, the functional training and obsolete term is one of my favorites that I haven't done in a long time, though. And it's a favorite of mine for a very particular reason. One of the things that I believe is done wrong in the fitness industry a lot is that we focus a lot on labels. We will give training labels like functional training or weight training or traditional weight training. And we forget about what are actually the details of the training. And the functional training and obsolete term is essentially an argument for how the term functional training is absolutely unnecessary.
Now, your wife is also in the fitness education industry, and you guys make a great team. I just want to give out your website again, yes2strength.com. So how long when was it born? When was your business?
The business was kind of born in about 1996. When we knew that I would move to Canada, we conceived of the idea of a website, and we came up with a name, and we were live on the internet in the beginning of 1998, as far as I remember.
As a strength and conditioning coach, you're able to educate so many trainers through a lot of your seminars, and you're also able to help inspire and educate them through your books and your ebooks. So not just the fitness enthusiast, but let's talk about the fitness trainer, and I want to discuss your book, the Flexible Periodization Method. What is periodization?
I Googled it a long time ago, and periodization essentially means a division into periods. That's what you get if you look in the Webster Dictionary. And if you Google periodization, you get a mix of history-related books and sports-related books. And as far as training goes, periodization simply is the art and science of dividing longer training cycles into periods and systematically changing a training program from period to period with the purpose of achieving peak performance at a predetermined date. That would be the definition of that. But I think it was important for me to fundamentally understand periodization as a division into periods, and then you can build on it from there.
So why is that important to apply those principles to your program? I mean,
periodization is very important because almost any training goal depends on the development of multiple physical capacities, and some of those physical capacities build upon each other. For example, it is well known that if you start training a beginner with strength training, the beginner will get strong really, really quickly. But that is because the nervous system learns to activate the muscles. It is not because the tendons and the bones actually get stronger. And if you begin training with heavy weights too soon, you get a situation where your muscle is actually stronger than your tendons and your bones, and you risk a tendon injury.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, as you apply the principle of periodization, you begin with a focus on strengthening tendons and bones, and then you shift to a focus on maximal strength training. I originally learned these concepts from probably one of the greatest writers ever on periodization, called Tudor Bompa, whom I have also had the honor to meet because he lives in the Toronto area.
Nice.
where I live as well.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now, some trainers may think that periodization is complicated. So what do you think?
I think yes and no. The way that I explain it is that creating a long-term training plan with the principles of periodization, it's like going to the mall. There are a lot of steps, but you can do it one step at a time. And if you find out that you have gone down the wrong path, you can walk back and continue along the right path. The most important thing for trainers to have, not to get confused, is to have a stepwise process by which you create those training programs. And that is something that I have been working on since the mid to late 90s, and which is also a part of the book. It's section 4 of the flexible periodization method. I distinctly remember, sitting in the late 90s creating training programs, being confused. For example, I would choose an exercise, put it into the program. I would think, what are the principles by which I choose these exercises? And it occurred to me that you need a stepwise process to create the training program in order to not be repeatedly confused every single time you create a training program.
Mm-hmm. Good point. So now, talking about being confused, what are the biggest mistakes a personal trainer will make when they're creating a program like that?
There are a few. One of the most important ones is that to create a great program with the wrong goals. For example, if you train a volleyball player, some people will apply the logic that all right, in volleyball you jump, so if you train a volleyball player, you should do jump training.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not necessarily the limiting factor for that particular athlete.
Okay.
This athlete may be naturally very, very explosive and almost with no training achieve the optimal jump height. But this athlete may also continuously get shoulder injuries. In that case, the limiting factor and thus the ideal focus of the training program may be prevention of shoulder injuries.
Okay.
Another factor for this athlete may also be that this athlete fatigues easily and can't complete the entire training sessions with optimal quality, which means another component of that person's training program should maybe be aerobic conditioning in order to aid in recovery during training.
Okay, good point. Yeah. That's good.
There are a few other ones, but that's one of the.
Well, go ahead and mention if you have another one that would be a good tip.
Is also to not assign enough time to each what's called a mesocycle in the long-term training plan. A mesocycle essentially is a number of weeks that focuses on developing the same physical capacities. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you an example with another periodization model called linear periodization that essentially has a phase of hypertrophy training, a phase of strength training, and a phase of power training. And one of the things that's well known is that in order to develop hypertrophy, you need to work on that for at least 6 to 8 weeks with a high-quality training program.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen sometimes linear periodization plans written up where a trainer will assign 2 weeks to the hypertrophy phase and 2 weeks to the strength phase and 2 weeks to the power phase. And that absolutely does not make sense to me because you cannot develop hypertrophy by training it for 2 weeks. that was one of the reasons that I started to look to create a more flexible model, because the linear periodization model, which used to be a very popular model, essentially does not work if you only have a limited time to train.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this, Karsten. What inspired you to write the book, The Flexible Periodization Method?
It was inspired by the challenge I was facing in my first full-time strength coaching job with the Danish National Elite Sports Institution. I was hired to create individualized training programs. Essentially, I was told to fit the system to the athlete instead of fitting the athlete to the system. And over the years, I was working with athletes at the international level from 13 different sports. Some of them were 15 years old, and they almost had never done any type of strength training. Some of them, like the tennis player, for example, was almost 30 years when I started training with them and had 15 years of training background. Others had 6 months of preparation before their next competition, particularly the young ones. And others, like the tennis player, he was never in Denmark more than 2 weeks at a time, then he would travel again. And I applied the current systems of that time, like linear and non-linear periodization, like ondulatory periodization. And I found that they did not, I couldn't use them in all the situations that I was faced with. And I didn't want to jump from one system to the other. So I wanted to have one system where it could kind of adjust every single parameter so I could create the optimal training program for any athlete in any situation with the same system. And that's why I started to think about creating the flexible periodization method. And that's why it's called the flexible periodization method, because it's about having a system that's flexible enough to being adjusted to create an optimal program for any situation.
Mm-hmm. Now, I looked over the book, and I want to ask you this, Karsten. What do you think makes the book, The Flexible Periodization Method, different from other books on periodization?
I think one of the things that makes it really different is that in section 1, I discuss the pros and cons of all current periodization models. Most other books that I've known on, they speak favorably about one model, which is that model the book is about, and they criticize all other models.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I wanted to do with the flexible periodization method, I essentially wanted to look at what is the effective features of each of the other models out there, and how can I integrate those features into the flexible periodization method. Essentially, how can I pull the effective features of one model in when that's needed? So essentially, it's like taking the best of the best, but putting it into a flexible system so I can use it at any given time. Mm-hmm. One of the other great features is that it is very, very practical.
Mm-hmm.
There are 59 almost like cake recipes of how to apply progressive overload that a trainer can take out and almost immediately apply to the program. And those cake recipes, so to speak, they cover both strength training and plyometric training and energy systems training.
And great resource for any trainer listening. Definitely check it out at yes2strength.com. And before we go, if you could give our listeners just one tip that would help them in strength and conditioning or fitness in general, what would it be?
The fitness world is very trend-based, and a lot of us sway from one style of training to the other and from one piece of equipment to the other.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, that if you are a fitness professional, you have to dig deeper and truly understand how any piece of equipment or any method of training works. And this means that essentially you must have a solid understanding of exercise physiology and biomechanics so you can really analyze those methods and pull them in at the right time. I want to give just one example. One of the the relatively famous pieces of equipment is a body blade. You know what a body blade is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've seen physiotherapists use it to rehab shoulder injuries, but I've actually never used it in a training program until recently. One of my clients told me she want to ride the Paris-Roubaix ride next spring, which, as you may know, they ride over cobblestones, and the bike handle will shake in their hands. And they gotta grab the handle really hard in order to maintain the bike stable.
Mm-hmm.
And it occurred to me that a way to train for that beyond riding on unstable surfaces is to use a body blade, because it shakes in the hand the same way the bike handle will do. Point being is that I did not jump onto the body blade because it was popular at a certain point in time and started to train anyone and everyone with the body blade. I just kind of, I wrote it down in my files. I had it in the back of my head, and now there is a specific situation where I have a client that needs what the body blade can deliver, and now I'm using the body blade.
So I like what you said. As a fitness professional, you have to dig deeper and truly get to understand how any piece of equipment can be used in training. So I like that. Okay, Karsten, it's time for us to go. I want to say thank you so much for your time, Karsten Jensen. It's been great speaking with you.
You're very welcome, Sherri. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you.
Thank you.
As we say goodbye, I'd like to remind you to take some time to relax, to reflect back on the success of your day. Enjoy that good, positive feeling of knowing you're doing everything you can to take care of your health.